In this demo, we're going to be looking at 2-point perspective, which is something that we looked at last lesson, but we're going to break it down and make things a little bit easier so that you guys can create a wonderful A4 sized piece based on 2-point perspective. Things you'll need for today's lesson is you'll need obviously a pencil, you'll need sharpener, rubber, and ideally a 30cm ruler, although a 15cm ruler will do as well. Okay, so on your A4 piece of paper, if you haven't got any spare paper, you can use the back of your remote learning booklet. What I'm going to do, the first thing we need to do is we need to draw the horizon line. So as we know, the horizon line is a horizontal line that is where off in the distance is a straight line across the page, but also across the scene. This is what we would refer to as our eye level or street level. And as we know, anything above this line we can see the bottom of. Anything below this line we need to be able to see the top of. Anything that intersects the line, so kind of part of it goes above and below, obviously you will neither see the top or the bottom of that object unless it is hollow, but we'll come to that at a later stage. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to draw our horizontal line. So we're going to, in terms of your A4 page, you need to have your A4 piece of paper in a landscape format like mine is, and around about halfway, so around about halfway in the page, you're going to draw a horizontal line which is going to measure 24 centimeters in width. Now, what I need you to do is you need to make sure that this line is parallel to the edge of your page. So I don't want to see any diagonal lines like this. This needs to be a perfect horizontal line across the page. And again, because this is one of our guidelines and this is our horizon line, you need to draw it really, really lightly. I'm going to increase the pressure and I'm going to press on quite hard, but you need to draw this line really, really lightly. The reason I'm pressing on so hard is so that you guys can see on the tape. So you're going to draw a line that is about 24 centimeters in length right across your page, so it looks like that. At either end now, you're going to create two little points, one there and one there. Again, you're going to do these nice and light. I'm going to label these. You don't need to label them. I'm labeling them so that you guys can see very clearly where they are. And it will show us that we now have two vanishing points. So the vanishing points are the points within the picture where our lines can no longer be seen, where all of the diagonal lines will meet, and this is the point where they disappear over the horizon, no longer to be able to be seen. Okay, so we've got our left and our right vanishing points. So that's what I'm going to refer to throughout the lesson, is our left, which is this side, and our right vanishing points already in our page. Now, on our horizon line, what I would like you to do, around about the halfway point, if it helps, you can measure again and put a little dash at 12 centimeters, which will obviously be our halfway point. However, roughly, it doesn't matter if it's slightly off center. What I would like you to do is place your ruler on that line with the 3 centimeters exactly on the line. Okay, so the 3 centimeters is on our horizon line, and we've put our ruler vertically on the page. So we've got 3 centimeters above, and we're going to come down to 6, which means we'll have 3 centimeters below. And what I want you to do is draw a vertical line. So your vertical line will go from 0 to 6, with 3 being on the horizon line in the middle. I'm going to show you that again. So you're going to put your ruler vertically so that the number 3 is exactly level with our horizon line, which is the horizontal line we've already drawn, and you're going to draw a line that goes from 0 all the way down to 6, just at the bottom there. And what you'll end up with is a bit of a cross that looks something like this. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to draw the top and the bottom of our building. This here is the corner of our building. So that's what we've just drawn, and we now need to draw our guidelines for the top and the bottom. Now, because this is a guideline, it needs to be drawn extremely lightly on your page, okay? So we're going to start with our left vanishing point. What I want you to do, we're going to draw the bottom lines in first. So what I would like you to do is place your pencil on your left vanishing point. You're then going to bring your ruler up to that vanishing point, up to your pencil rather, and then you're going to line that up so it lines up with the bottom of the vertical line that you've just drawn. Okay, and then very, very lightly, remember I'm doing this heavily so that you guys can see it on the screen, but you're going to draw a diagonal line which goes from our left vanishing point to the bottom of the vertical line that we've just drawn. Okay, now you need to repeat that step on the right vanishing point. So you're going to put your pencil on the right vanishing point, you're going to bring your ruler up so it's level with the bottom of our vertical line and level with our vanishing point, and then you're going to join those 2 points up with a diagonal line that looks a little bit like that. Okay, now we've now got the bottom guideline in for where the bottom of all of our buildings are going to sit. We're going to do the first building, okay? So we're going to do the building just in the center. Now, all of the buildings are going to sit on the bottom for our drawing, on the bottom line, but they're not all, the tops of them are not all going to sit on the same 2 lines. However, for our first building, we need to draw our guidelines in. So we're going to come to our left vanishing point again. You're going to put the pencil on the left vanishing point, bring your ruler to it, and then just line the top of your ruler with the top of that page and draw a nice diagonal line. So you end up with that. And then you're going to repeat that step for the right hand side. Now, what I would like you to do, draw a nice straight line between the right vanishing point and the top of our vertical line. So what you should end up with is 2 triangles or 2 arrowheads facing in an opposite direction that looks like that. Now might be a good point to pause the video and go back over that and see if you can get all of that done. And then once you've got something that looks a little bit like mine but without the labels, you can then press play and go on to the next task. Now, if you've already got that and it looks a little bit like this or something like mine, what we can start to do now is we can start to get the edges of our buildings in. Now, when you're doing 2-point perspective, the only lines that remain the same all the way through are our vertical and horizontal lines. They are always vertical and horizontal. So if we wanted to create the edge of a building, all of those lines would still be vertical all the way down. If we were to create the different heights of building though, the rooftop would vary with the diagonal lines. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our first building. So we've already got our corner line in, which is the first vertical line that we drew in. And what we're going to do, we're going to put a wall on, we're going to put the edge of the building on our right side and an edge of the building on the left side. So what I want you to do is line your ruler up with our original vertical line right in the center there. And very carefully just move it all the way across until the other side of the ruler lines up with that line. And what I would like you to do is now, on the other side, just draw a vertical line all the way down. Again, you guys are going to do this very lightly. I'm pressing on heavily so you guys can see it clearly. Now, what I would like you to do is on the other side now, so on our left-hand side, you're going to put a ruler. You're going to line it up with the original, our first vertical line, and then on the other side of the ruler, you are going to draw a vertical line there, making sure that those two vertical lines only go to the top and the bottom of our original diagonal lines. So hopefully you can see that nice and clearly now. So you're not extending them beyond the top and the bottom of our diagonal lines. Again, that might be a good point now to pause the video and just have another go at that, making sure that it looks something like what I've got on my page. Okay, so hopefully you've all got that now. What I'm going to do is we're now going to we've got a single building in the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an extra building to the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side of our center. So what I want you to do is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our vertical lines in this time. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw these really, really lightly. So what I would like you to do is we're going to line our ruler up with the right hand, so the vertical line that's furthest to the right. And you're going to just move your ruler over a little bit of the way. It doesn't have to be very far, maybe around about 1 centimetre. And then from the top diagonal line to the bottom diagonal line, you're going to draw a very, very faint line. And again, I'm pressing on a little bit harder so you guys can see. So very, very faint. Then what I would like you to do is you're going to now draw you're going to repeat that process. So you put your ruler on the line, the vertical line that you've just drawn. Move your ruler over a little bit. We're not going to go too far this time. We're not going to create a massive building. And then repeat that by drawing a very light vertical line from the top guideline to the bottom guideline. Okay. Now, I don't want building number 2, the right-hand building, to be the same height as my main building. I want it to be a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pencil. I need to now redraw a new guideline for the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop my pencil on the vanishing point. I'm going to bring my ruler up to it in a diagonal position, and then I'm just going to judge. I'm going to say around about there. I'm not going to go too far up because I don't want it to get too close to my first diagonal line. And I'm just going to draw a guideline again, very, very lightly. You guys are going to draw this very, very lightly. And I'm pressing on a little bit harder so you can see it. And then you can see that what I've got now is I've got a new roof height on that section. Now, to make this look like a building, what we need to do is we need to create these walls here. We're going to treat this area here where I'm pointing, we're going to treat this area here as an alleyway between building number 1 and building number 2. So what I need to do is I need to draw the wall that goes into the alleyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my left vanishing point. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more confusing, so it's important that you pay attention and watch the video to this section. So we're going to come to the left vanishing point. I'm going to pop my pencil on that left vanishing point. I'm going to bring my ruler up to it, up to my pencil, and once that's in position, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it so that it lines up to the bottom of my vertical line for building number 2. So I'm going to just label these so you guys know which ones I'm talking about. So this is building number 2. This is building number 1. Okay. So we've got building number 1, building number 2. On building number 2, we've got a right wall and we've got a left wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up to the left wall, which is that line there, at the bottom of that, and I'm going to make sure that my ruler diagonally lines up with the left line to the left line of my vanishing point there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, again, you guys are going to draw a very, very light line, but you're going to draw a line all the way from there to the bottom corner. And you're going to just draw a very light line all that way. And then what we're going to do now is we need to create the roof of building number 2. So I'm not going to go all the way to the top guideline. I'm going to come to that new guideline that we put in a couple of seconds ago. I'm going to, again, line that up with the left-hand vanishing point, bring my ruler up, and then I'm going to bring the diagonal line so it lines up with the top corner on the left wall of building number 2, and I'm going to just draw a line that comes down like that, diagonally. So now you can see that you've got a new wall and we've got a bit of an alleyway in there. And if I just rub that section out or just lighten that section there at the top, hopefully you guys can see that it starts to look a little bit like 2 buildings. So what we can do at that point is probably a good place to pause the video again and catch up now. Remember, don't write the labels. So you don't need to write any of these labels. Remember, you're working in very, very light lines, and you're going to try and create building number 2. So hopefully, up until this point, you just pause the video there. You can go back and watch any of the steps that you might need to. Okay, so if you are now up to the same step, what I would like you to do is we're going to create building number 3, and we're going to do that over the left-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to line it up to the left side of building number 1. And I'm going to not create too big an alleyway this time. I'm going to create a very small alleyway. So you can see I'm going to line my ruler up and I'm going to move it just a little bit, and I'm going to put a very light vertical line just between the top guide point and the bottom guide point. Now, building number 3, I want to be a little bit taller than building number 1. Okay, so I'm going to extend that line a little bit further than the top guideline. And what I'm going to get you to do now is we're going to create a thin, tall building. So keep your ruler lined up vertically with the line that you've just drawn for building number 3. And you're going to bring it over a little bit, not much, about a centimetre or so. And you're going to draw a very light vertical line that goes from the bottom guideline and extends up past the top guideline. Now, we need to give this a roof. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our pencil on our left vanishing point, bring our ruler up to it, and we're going to tilt our ruler until it becomes a diagonal line that lines up with the top point of our right wall of building 3. And we're going to just draw a diagonal line up and over like so. Now, I'm going to add some labels so you guys can see this clearly. So we've got, this is number 3, so this is building number 3. Excuse my spelling. Building number 3. And this is the right wall, and this is the left wall. Okay. So what we need to do now, we've got our roof in place. And what we need to do is we need to create the same things that we did before with our little bit of an alleyway. But obviously this corner now, so the right wall of building 3, needs to return to vanishing point on the right hand side to create that wall coming down. So we're going to put our pencil on our vanishing point, bring our ruler up to that vanishing point and twist our ruler until we're at the corner of the right wall of building 3. And we're going to just draw a diagonal line all the way down to that, back to that vanishing point. And again, you guys are going to do that very lightly. I'm pressing on a lot harder than you. And I'm just going to go over that again a little bit harder. And then what you can do, you're going to press down a little bit harder, just till it gets to the start of building number 1. Okay. So at that point, pause the video, guys. Catch up with all of those steps up until that point, and then once you've done, you can go on to step number 3. Okay, so now we've got 3 buildings, and there's lots of lines going on. They're all really light in your drawing. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over my main lines with a kind of pink Sharpie just to highlight those lines to you. Now, these are the lines that you guys want to go in and just apply a bit more pressure on so that they are a little bit darker than your guidelines. So we're going to start with our first line, which was at the very first vertical line that we drew. And I'm going to add on building 1, I'm going to add 2 more for my left wall and 1 more vertical for my right wall. Again, remember guys, you're still working in pencil. You're not doing this in a felt tip or a biro or anything like that. You're still working in pencil. I'm just highlighting which lines you need to press on a little bit harder to create the outlines of the building. So I'm just going to draw the roof now on building number 1. Now remember, when I come down this diagonal here, which is going to be lined up with vanishing point on the right hand side, I'm not going to go any further than that vertical line there, because obviously that's where that building ends. So I'm going to stop when I get to the right wall. And I'm going to repeat that step on the left hand side. So again, I'm going to the vanishing point, diagonal line on the vanishing point to the left hand side. I'm going to come down and I'm going to stop when I get to the vertical line, which is the left wall of building number 1. Okay, I need to add the bottom. So I'm going to put the base in using the same process. So we've got the left wall there, and we've got the right wall there. Okay, now we've got building number 1, and you guys have pressed on a little bit harder, so now you can see all of those, and your guidelines are still really soft and really light. Okay, I'm going to now do the same process for building number 2. So I need to get my verticals in first. So I've got my main wall there, my left wall. And then I'm going to do my second vertical for my right wall. Remember, I'm only going to that lower guideline. I'm not going all the way to the top. I'm just going to that lower guideline. And I'm going to create now my roof by drawing the diagonal line from the left wall of building 2 in line to my vanishing point on the right hand side. And I'm going to do the same thing for the base, but on that bottom guideline. Now we need to get our side wall in, don't we? So remember, the side walls, they go in to the opposite vanishing point. So these are going to go to a vanishing point on the left side. And I'm going to just, when I get to building number 1, I'm obviously going to stop, because the wall itself there, the roof line, does not vanish behind building number 1, because building number 1 is a solid block. And I need to do the same thing on the bottom. And that's going to come along, and that, again, that's going to stop. Okay, now building number 3. Building number 3 is a little bit trickier because it's taller than building number 1, isn't it? So we can see that it goes behind the roof of building number 1. So same process though. My vertical lines still remain vertical. I'm going to draw the first, my right vertical line. And remember, we're extending that beyond our top diagonal guideline, and then the new guideline that we put in, I'm going to draw the left wall, but obviously I'm going to stop when I get to that guideline there. Now I need to just draw the roof for the front of building number 3. So remember, it disappears to the vanishing point on the left hand side, and I'm just going between the two, the left and the right wall. And then the same process for the bottom, just between the left and the right wall. Now I need to do 2 more lines to make that look like a building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remember that my roof and my side wall now disappears to the opposite vanishing point. So that's going to go to the vanishing point on the right vanishing point. So I'm going to come from the corner of building number 3 and I'm going to come down like that. And then I'm going to create the bottom into the alleyway by doing the same process. It's going to disappear to vanishing point number on the right hand side. So what I would like you to do now is pause the video in a second. I would like you to go through and apply a bit more pressure to just the lines that I've drawn in pink. So you're going to darken those lines a little bit compared to your guidelines, and that will give you 3 clear buildings. So you pause the video now and complete those tasks. So hopefully now you've completed that and you've got something that looks a little bit like mine does. I'm just going to rub out the labels now, just so, because now what we're going to do, we're going to add some windows and we're going to add some doors. Now, all of the windows, doors, the tops and the bottoms of our windows and doors, they obviously are going to be diagonal lines. So they're going to disappear. Again, the line of those are going to follow the same principles, and they're going to vanish. They're going to head towards each of the vanishing points. So if they're on this wall here, if our windows and doors are on this wall here of building number 1, the tops and the bottoms are going to disappear to our vanishing point on the right hand side. If they're on this wall here, the tops and the bottom of our windows and doors are going to disappear towards our vanishing point on the left hand side. So I'll show you what I mean. So remember to keep watching. So I'm going to add a single row of windows at the bottom and a single row of windows at the top, okay, on building number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my pencil to vanishing point on the right hand side. I'm going to bring my ruler up and I'm going to create the guideline first for the tops of my windows. So I'm not going all the way to the horizon line. So remember that that line in the middle is the first line that we drew, which was my horizon line. So I'm going to be a little bit below that, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line across till I get to that middle line. And again, I'm pressing on really quite hard with my pencil. You guys are going to do this nice and softly and lightly. I'm now going to create a line for the bottom of this set of windows at the bottom of my building number 1. And as you can see, I've kept my ruler on the right vanishing point, and I've just moved it down a little bit, just below the line that I've just drawn. And I'm going to just draw another guideline in like that. Okay, so now you can see that I've got a new guideline there where I'm pointing and a second guideline there, still below the horizon line. And this is where this is going to be the top. So this line here is the top, and this line here is the bottom of my windows. Now the sides of the windows are going to be vertical. They, as we said, the vertical and horizontal lines always remain vertical and horizontal. So I need to get my ruler lined up with that very first vertical line we drew, and I'm going to move it across a little bit to the right. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line between the top and bottom of the 2 new guidelines that we've just drawn. Okay, and then I'm going to move it along a little bit, not very far, because I'm just going to create I think I'm going to put 3 windows in here. So I've got window number 1 left and right. I'm now on to window number 2. You want to try and evenly space these as you go so that it looks more realistic. Leave a little gap of wall, and there we go. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 windows. Now the beauty of what I've just done is you can continue to use the same 2 guidelines, the top and the bottom guidelines that we've just drawn, to create windows on building number 2. I'm going to create windows on building number 2 by lining up my ruler with my vertical line, bring it in a little bit, and what I'm going to create some really thin windows on this one with and I'm going to create, how many should I put? I'm going to put 4 windows on this bit. So as you can see, I'm just moving my ruler along in a vertical motion, and there we go. So I've got 1, 2, 3 windows there, 1, 2, 3, 4 windows there, but these are obviously very, very thin. So we've now done the windows at the bottom. So what I would like you to do at that point is pause the video, and I would like you to draw your 2 guidelines, your top and bottom new guideline disappearing to vanishing point R, vanishing the right vanishing point, and then using vertical lines. Remember, they have to be vertical, they're not being diagonal or horizontal. Vertical lines, you're going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vertical lines on building number 1 to create 1, 2, 3 windows. You're then going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertical lines on building number 2 to draw 1, 2, 3, 4 windows. Once you've done that, guys, come back in for the next step. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to give our buildings, I'm going to give building number 1 some windows at the top. And to do that, what I need to do is repeat the same process that I've just done for the windows at the bottom, but obviously our guidelines are going to be above our horizon line. So just a reminder that this is the horizon line, which is the line that runs through the middle of our picture. And starting from my, again, pencil on the right vanishing point and just a little bit above the horizon line, I'm going to draw a diagonal line, nice and light. Obviously, you guys are going to press down a little bit harder. And that's going to be the bottom of my top set of windows. Okay. And now I'm going to draw another line, again, starting from my right vanishing point all the way up, and I'm going to make these windows at the top quite big, but all the way up again, pressing down really lightly. I'm pressing down harder, but just you guys are going to press down really lightly, and that's going to be my top line there. Okay, now we need to repeat the same process, but what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that your vertical lines now line up with the ones at the bottom. So where you've put your vertical line for your windows at the bottom, that's where you're going to put your vertical lines at the top as well to create your window. So you're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're going to stop when between your top guideline and your bottom guideline, so it looks a little bit like that. So what you'll have now on building number 1 is you'll have 6 windows in total. We're not going to add any top windows to building number 2 because we're going to do something a little bit different. So what I would like you to do now is just very, very lightly pause the video and then go ahead and get your top set of windows in on building number 1, please. Okay, what I would like you to do now is on those lines that you've just drawn, I'm going to go over them again in a pink pen so you guys can see it a bit more clearly, but you are going to go over just your window outlines applying a little bit more pressure in your pencil so that they stand out from your guidelines. So I'm just going to go over mine here, and as you can see, I'm putting my vertical lines in, making sure that I'm staying between the top and bottom guidelines that I've drawn for the top and bottom of the windows. So remember that I'm putting vertical lines in for the sides of my windows, and the top and the bottom are going to be diagonal lines that disappear to the right vanishing point. And remember that I'm not going to draw that guideline on the bit in between my right and left hand side of my windows, because obviously that would be the wall, wouldn't it? So we wouldn't be able to see those bits there. So hopefully now what you can start to see coming together is that the building is starting to look a little bit more like a building, a little bit less like a box. And I'm going to repeat the same process on building number 2. And I'm going to put those thin windows in. It's a little bit trickier with a Sharpie to show the definition between the windows because the nib on the Sharpie is a little bit harder to use, but you guys shouldn't have too much trouble just applying a little bit more pressure using your pencil. Now at the top on what we're going to do, we're going to leave the right hand side now. So what I would like you to do is pause the video again, just apply a bit more pressure on all of those lines that I've done there so that you end up with an image that looks a little bit more like mine. And then once you've done that, I'd like you to come back and what we're going to do, we're going to add some doors and some sets of windows to the buildings on the left hand side. Okay, so I'm going to just remove now my couple of labels that I've drawn there to illustrate to you guys where you're going to put things. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add some windows and doors to the left hand side of building number 1. So because it's the left hand side of building number 1, all of our guidelines are going to disappear back to our left vanishing point. What's really key to make this look realistic though is when we put our bottom of our windows and our tops of our windows, that they line up to the same points that we did for our bottom sets on the other side of the building. So we're going to start from the left vanishing point and we're going to draw a guideline that comes down, and we're going to make sure that the 2 vanishing points there meet on that line and they're perfectly in line. And we're going to do the same for our top guideline. Draw that along. And then what I want you to do now is we're going to put one window in first. So you're going to put a vertical line in there and you're going to put a vertical line in there. Now the key to making this look realistic is that you want to try and create a similar sort of size to the windows that you put on the right hand side of the building. So when you're moving your ruler along to do your vertical lines, try and judge roughly how big the windows were that you drew on the right hand side of the building. We're going to draw a door now. Now, what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to say use the top guideline that you've just drawn for the top of that window, and we're going to start from there with a vertical line, but this time instead of stopping at the bottom guideline, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to move our ruler across a little bit, and then we're going to draw another vertical line to create the left hand side of the door, and then I'm going to create double doors on this one. So I'm going to put a line somewhere in the middle of the box that I've just drawn, and it will create a double door effect that'll look like that. And again, you can just go through once you're happy that you've got everything in place in your extremely light lines. What you can do then is you can go through and just apply a bit more pressure using your pencil and your ruler on those lines to make them stand out from your guidelines. So just remember guys that if it's the left hand side of a building or whatever it is, or an object on 2-point perspective, the diagonal lines always disappear to the left-hand vanishing point. Okay, if it's the right-hand side of a building, all of those lines disappear to the right-hand vanishing point when using 2-point perspective. So what do I mean by that? So building number 1 in the middle, the left-hand side, every diagonal line on the left-hand side of the building where I'm pointing now, all disappear to the left-hand viewpoint, vanishing point. So the bottom of the building, the tops of the windows, the bottoms of the windows, the top of the roof, all disappear back to my left vanishing point. But all of the vertical lines remain vertical. Okay? Now the right-hand side of the building all disappear to the right-hand vanishing point. And again, you can see the top, the bottom, the windows, all the diagonal lines disappear. Let's take building number 2, and we can see that the left-hand side of the building number 2, which is here, the walls, the roof and the bottom disappear to the left-hand vanishing point. So the left-hand walls disappear to the left-hand vanishing point, the right-hand walls to the right vanishing point. Okay, we've done really well up until now. We've got 3 buildings starting to come together. And the last thing, you can just repeat those steps that I've just shown you to create windows in building number 3. You could add some doors on there maybe. You could add, remember to keep the stories. So we've got a second story here, so our second floor. Remember to keep the lines of those windows in line. So I wouldn't want to see, 6 sets of windows in building number 3, because then the perspective would mean that building number 3 wouldn't have the same size floors. So, for example, if I was going to draw windows in building number 3, I would still follow the tops and the bottoms of the windows that I've drawn on building number 1. Okay, so what I would like you to do is you're going to have a go at just adding some windows to door and doors to number 3, to building number 3. And then what I'm going to show you in a second is how we can use 2-point perspective to add some more scenic features and really kind of have a play with building this up into a full street scene. So pause the video now and add some windows to your building number 3. Okay, guys. So the other thing that you will always see in a street scene generally is a footpath. So what you need to do is we need to create a footpath, and obviously the left-hand footpath will disappear to our left vanishing point, and the right-hand footpath will disappear to our right vanishing point, and they will meet somewhere around the middle where we drew our first vertical line. So what I want you to do is start off on the left-hand side. We're going to start with the left vanishing point with our pencil on the left vanishing point. And I don't want you to do too big a footpath. You're going to just kind of bring your ruler into a diagonal line, leave around about just over half a centimetre, I think, from the edge of building number 1, and just draw a very, very light, soft diagonal line down to illustrate the footpath. Then you're going to repeat that on from vanishing point on the right hand side. Again, remember we're trying to create a scene of perspective, so it needs to be roughly the same sort of size as the footpath width on the left hand side that you've just done. So bring your diagonal vanishing point line all the way down. Okay. Now, sometimes, not always, you could have a little curve, and it wouldn't be a massive curve, but just a little curve there. So where those 2 points meet, you could just put a little pencil curve in there, and that would create your bit of a curve. Now, with footpaths, obviously they generally have a curb stone, and then they step down to the road. So what you're going to do is return to your left vanishing point. Now, this is really important. I don't want to see, obviously, curved stones, they need to be relevant to the size and perspective and proportions of the building. So they're going to be quite small. So what I want you to do is draw a very, very small gap between your first guideline for your footpath, and you're going to just come below that a little bit. Remember, we're disappearing off to the left-hand point. And you're going to draw just a very soft line that looks a little bit like that. And you're going to repeat that for the right hand side. Remember, trying to replicate that sort of size that you've just drawn. And you'll notice that as the lines start to disappear towards the vanishing point, they become one. and you can't actually see them anymore. Okay, excellent. So we've now got a bit of a curve going on. We've got 3 buildings, we've got windows, we've got doors. And I'm going to show you what you could do in terms of adding some features to this. So what else could we have? What could we have in our street scene? We could have maybe some signs on the building. Let's say if they were shops. So what I could do is I'm going to add a sign to building number 1, and I'm going to choose this big area here to add a sign to. So I'm going to start from, because it's on the left-hand wall of building number 1, I'm going to start from my left vanishing point. I'm going to bring the ruler up to my left vanishing point, and I'm going to go just ever so slightly above the horizon line and draw a guideline in. And then I want the sign to pretty much fill that area. So I'm going to take my ruler from the left-hand vanishing point. I'm not going to go all the way to the roof, but I'm going to come a little bit down from the roof, and I'm going to draw a guideline for the top of my vanishing, for the top of my sign. Now I need to draw the sides of the sign in, so I'm going to draw 2 vertical lines between the top and the bottom, one on the left side, one on the right side. Okay, so now I've got a bit of a sign going on in there, and I'm going to draw some graphics on there. I'm going to draw a couple of little words on there, but what I will need to do is, because that's the outline of my sign, so that's the wooden bit of the sign, I need to put some guidelines in so that the letters remain in perspective, because I can't just write shop like this, because it wouldn't look right, would it? Okay, so if I wrote shop or shore or whatever word on there, it still needs to be in perspective. And as it moves further away from my eye line, the letters would get smaller. So I'm going to draw a couple of little guidelines, and I'm going to make it not quite as big as the sign that I've just drawn, the outline. I'm going to come in a little bit, and from vanishing point L all the way up, I'm going to draw a guideline. And then I'm going to go to the top, or somewhere near the top, about the same distance, all the way back to vanishing point L, the left vanishing point. And now in that section, I'm just going to draw, so remember your vertical lines remain vertical. So I'm going to just add some text. So you can see that my vertical lines are still vertical, and you can see that as the letters get closer to the center, they are getting taller, which shows the perspective. And there we go. So what I'm going to do now is the same thing we've been doing before, is I'm going to just go over a couple of those lines just to make sure that they stand out, and so that you guys can see it. I'm going to go over them in my Sharpie so that you guys can see them nice and clear on the video. Obviously you guys are not going to do the Sharpie bit. You're going to just do yours in pencil. Maybe apply a bit more pressure with your pencil on certain lines just so you can see it. But the beauty is that once you've got the technique of this down, you can literally create anything you want to, and you can really start to play with what features you include, how many buildings, the size of the buildings, how many windows they have, how many doors they have. You can add things like dustbins to the footpath or benches, and it's all about remembering and thinking about which vanishing point the lines go back to. So remembering that if it's a left wall or a left facing object, it goes to the left vanishing point. If it's a right facing object, it goes to the right vanishing point. And they're the key things to 2-point perspective, and making sure that 2-point perspective looks realistic. I'm going to add a little curve to my footpath so it bends round. And there we go, guys. So What I would like you to do now is pause the video, have a go at adding a couple of little features, whether that be a sign or a little dustbin. Remember to think about proportions. I don't want to see dustbins or benches that are as big as the buildings that you've drawn or bigger than your windows. Think about the proportions of things. Add some doors, maybe add a couple of extra buildings down the sides here. Have some fun with it, see what you can create, and don't forget to submit your work via Teams at the end of the lesson. Thank you very much, guys.